Loyalty sounds noble until you actually have to rely on it. Most people never do. They assume the warm words, the shared jokes. The years of hanging out mean something unbreakable. Machiavelli would smirk at that. In his world, and in yours, loyalty isn't a sentence someone says. It's a pattern that shows up under pressure. It's not declared. It's exposed. Here's the uncomfortable truth. A lot of the people orbiting you aren't attached to you. They're attached to what being near you gives them. Your momentum, your access, your attention. The moment that benefit dries up, the relationship mysteriously cools. That's why Machiavelli favored small strategic disruptions, not to harm people, but to reveal them. You don't ask, "Are you loyal?" You build moments where loyalty costs something. Then you watch. People will tell you anything. Pressure tells you the truth. So, here's how we start. Think of your life like a fortress. Not everyone who smiles at the gate deserves a room inside. You're not building a crowd. You're building a core. And that means you must be willing to test. Quietly, precisely, without apology. Test 1. Pull the spotlight. For a while, just a while, stop feeding the connection. No praise, no constant check-ins, no drip of validation that lets them feel central in your world. Then observe. If their energy toward you fades, if they get chilly, if they suddenly begin to orbit someone shinier, what did you really lose? You didn't lose a friend. You lost a performance. Because here's the Machiavellian red. The ego-addicted aren't loyal to you. They're loyal to their reflection in your eyes. When your light dims, they feel smaller, and rather than hold position, they drift. Real allies don't require a spotlight to stay steady. They don't need applause to believe in their own worth. Often, when you withdraw a bit, true loyalty actually leans in. It checks on you. It maintains the bond without being fed. This is the first cut through the fog. It hurts a little because it breaks the illusion that we're good because we talk a lot. You'll notice how some people evaporate when the constant attention stops. Let them. You didn't break the relationship, you simply stopped subsidizing it. Test 2. Introduce uncertainty. Bring up a bold move you're considering. A new direction. A risk that signals change. Then, don't argue, just listen. The loyal encourage your growth, even when it makes them uncomfortable. The disloyal disguise insecurity as concern. They'll sound caring. "I just don't want you to get hurt." Or, "Are you sure this is smart?" But underneath is the message, "Don't outgrow me. Don't move beyond the version of you that makes me feel safe." It's subtle, and that's why this test is so revealing. When your evolution threatens their comfort, their true position emerges. A real friend adapts to your expansion. They might ask tough questions, but their energy pushes you forward. A fake friend tries to anchor you where they liked you best. Don't debate them. Don't rescue the moment. Let them talk. The more they speak, the clearer it gets. Are they protecting you or protecting their place beside you? You'll start to notice patterns here. The ones who quietly back your courage, even when they're scared, are gold. The ones who need you to stay small so they can stay steady. They're not with you. They're with a version of you that serves them. Test 3. Go quiet. Silence is the scalpel that will change your circle. Not as a punishment and not as a game. Just create space. Step back from being constantly visible, constantly available, constantly performing. Then watch what happens. Some people only show up when you're loud, when you're posting, when you're shining, when the room is paying attention. Those are spectators. Real loyalty runs in the background. It notices your absence. It reaches out without an audience. It says, "You've been quiet, are you good?" Not, "Why haven't you replied?" That difference is everything. Silence shatters the theater. If your bond requires constant noise to survive, it isn't a bond. It's a show. And shows end. Machiavelli understood the ruler's real danger wasn't the army at the gates. It was the betrayal inside the walls. Your life is no different. You cannot afford to confuse proximity with allegiance. When you go quiet and someone disappears, you didn't lose support, you lost an illusion. Now, before we go further, let me make one thing clear. Testing people is not cruelty, it's stewardship. You're not creating betrayal, you're uncovering it. People who benefit from your ignorance will call your awareness cold. They'll say you've changed. Good. Change is the point. You're shifting from hoping people are loyal to knowing who is. As you apply these first 3 tests, the social weather around you will change. The easy smiles get tighter. The tone of certain conversations goes off. You'll hear gentle pushback on your distance, your plans, your focus. That's data. Don't defend, don't explain. Observe. A disloyal person rarely admits guilt. They often undermine instead. If your calm boundaries make someone agitated, they just told you their relationship with you depended on you staying soft. This is the trap most people fall into. They finally see the truth, and then they ignore it. They comfort themselves with history, with shared memories, with, "Maybe I'm being too harsh." You're not. If your gut tightens around someone, if your wins feel like something you have to hide from them, if your silence is met with sulking instead of concern, your body already knows what your mind refuses to accept. Believe the signal. From here on, precision beats sentiment. You're not trying to catch people there. You're clarifying your foundation. You're stripping away what can't carry weight. You don't need an army. You need a handful of people who don't flinch when the lights go out, who can hear your doubt and hold their ground, who won't leverage your vulnerability for an advantage. And here's the paradox you'll feel quickly. When you start living this way, strategically, observantly, quietly, the loyal reveal themselves fast. It's not all snakes. The silence that exposes the weak also highlights the strong. The ones who step forward without needing a stage. The ones who check the locks while you focus on the mission. The ones who guard your name when you're not in the room. One of those is worth more than 100 convenient nods. Remember, loyalty is not loud. It doesn't need to broadcast its devotion. It shows up through calm, consistent presence. Especially in the in-between seasons when you're not posting wins or performing confidence. If someone is truly on your side, you don't need a speech to know it. You feel it. The room is safer when they're in it. So we start with 3 simple moves. Withdraw the spotlight. Introduce uncertainty and go quiet. No confrontations, no big speeches, just patterns, spacing, and attention. Let people reveal themselves. Let their behavior say what their mouths can't. You're not closing your heart. You're closing the gates to those who never plan to defend them. In the next phase, we'll push deeper. What happens when you show temporary weakness on purpose, and how to design an opportunity where betraying you would benefit them, and then watch what they choose. That's where the masks truly fall. Test 4. Show weakness deliberately. This one is brutal, because it challenges the illusion that everyone who claps for you actually stands with you. Here's how it works. You show a crack, a controlled one. Let them see you uncertain for once. Struggling, maybe tired, maybe unsure about your next move. You don't have to perform despair. Just stop being invincible for a moment. Then watch. Most people love you at your strongest. They love the version of you that's unshakable because it makes them feel safe or useful. But when that strength flickers, the dynamic shifts. Some get uncomfortable. They don't know how to exist without your stability. Others take silent pleasure in your wobble. It makes them feel taller for once. Only a few lean in, steady, grounded, protective without pity. Those are the ones Machiavelli said are forged in the fire. Because real loyalty isn't about adoring your image, it's about standing beside your reality. The people who vanish when you're weak were never supporting you. They were feeding off your strength. You were their ladder, their source of validation, their proof that they were close to power. The moment that ladder shakes, they step off. Not out of care, but because they were never built to stand beside you when the palace trembles. Machiavelli would say, "The one who stays when the kingdom shakes deserves to stand beside you when it rises again." That's what this test reveals. Who's there when the crown tilts? Who runs when the armor slips? Because weakness doesn't change real loyalty, it exposes it. Test 5. Give them the chance to betray you. This is the coldest test of all and the most clarifying. You don't have to design something dramatic. Just offer an opportunity where they could gain by choosing themselves over you. Maybe it's access to information, a connection, a shortcut. Something where betraying you would bring them some personal advantage. Don't explain. Don't warn. Just present the temptation and observe. Do they warn you in advance? Do they hesitate? Do they justify it afterward with words like, "I didn't think it was a big deal"? Or do they come straight to you and speak the truth, even though it cost them? That moment tells you everything. It doesn't just show who's loyal. It reveals what they value. Words can lie. Values can't. And that's why this test must be silent. Once someone knows they're being observed, the result is tainted. You're not testing performance. You're testing instinct. And instinct always speaks before image. Now, here's the thing most people don't want to face. The majority around you will fail one of these tests. Not because they're evil, just because they're not built for real loyalty. They're built for comfort, for convenience, for whatever serves them in the moment. Machiavelli didn't care about sentiment. He cared about survival. The outcome he sought from these trials wasn't friendship. It was clarity. Because clarity is power. You'll lose people, but what you gain is clean air, quiet rooms, and the few who are proven. You stop wasting energy on the shadows who only appear in your light. You stop begging for understanding from those who are never meant to understand your drive. You stop explaining your discipline to people who feed off distraction. Machiavelli didn't teach you to become paranoid. He taught you to become precise. You don't need 50 friends. You need 3, 2, even 1. One who stays when there's no reward, who believes in your direction when there's no proof, who protects your name when you're not in the room. But you'll never find that person if you keep mistaking flattery for faithfulness. The truth behind the tests, most people surround themselves with noise. People who laugh when they succeed, vanish when they struggle, and pretend that's loyalty. It's not. It's camouflage. A theater of affection played to hide self-interest. And unless you test those around you, you'll keep trusting masks. So, you start small. Withdraw the spotlight. Introduce uncertainty. Go silent. Show weakness. Offer temptation. Then you watch. Quietly. No confrontation. No accusations. Just data. When someone reveals themselves, you don't need to punish them. You just need to reposition them. Outside the walls, the world will call you cold for this. They'll say you've changed, that you've grown distant, that you're too suspicious. They'll try to guilt you back into softness because your precision threatens their comfort. But remember, When someone benefits from your ignorance, your awareness feels like betrayal to them. Stay the course. You're not being cruel. You're being responsible. The weak will always mistake strength for cruelty. That's why most people stay stuck. They see the truth and still cling to the lie. They hope disloyal people will change. They tell themselves, maybe I'm overreacting. But deep down, they already know. When your energy drains after every conversation, when your wins feel heavy instead of light, when your gut whispers, something's off, that's the truth speaking. And every time you ignore it, you delay your own rise. Power isn't built on comfort. It's built on clarity. And clarity comes only through testing. From reaction to orchestration. Here's the shift that happens once you begin applying these tests. You stop reacting, and you start orchestrating. You become deliberate. When you talk about a risky move, you're not just sharing plans, you're observing who flinches. When you go quiet, you're mapping who fades. When you expose vulnerability, you're watching who steps in or who steps away. When you give opportunity, you're measuring values. No one needs to know you're testing. No one needs to know you're watching, because silence is your advantage. The moment you accuse someone, they have room to lie. The moment you ask for proof, they can rehearse it. But when you just watch, the truth spills naturally. People reveal themselves most when they think no one's paying attention. So, you become the mirror they don't realize is watching. The stillness that hears more than words. And here's the real paradox. When you live this way, strategic, precise, observant, you don't just test others. You begin testing yourself. You start to ask, am I the kind of person who stands firm when someone else withdraws the spotlight from me? Do I stay loyal when there's no benefit? Do I protect the ones who trust me even when no one's watching? Because real power isn't just demanding loyalty, it's embodying it. You can't expect others to hold the line if you can't hold it yourself. So, the test turns inward. It becomes a mirror. You learn to be consistent, disciplined, unwavering even when convenience tempts you to drift. You become the kind of ally you wish others were, the one who doesn't flinch in silence, who guards secrets like weapons, who honors loyalty like currency. This is the transition Machiavelli hinted at, from ruling others to ruling yourself. The goal isn't isolation, it's purification. Every time someone fails a test, your circle gets smaller but stronger. Every departure sharpens your edge. You stop mourning what left because what remains is real. The few who stayed through the silence, through the risk, through the cracks, those are your foundation. By the time you finish these tests, your world is quieter, cleaner, more deliberate. You don't move out of fear anymore. You move out of certainty. And certainty is power. In the next part, we'll go deeper into what happens after the tests, how to rebuild your circle from the ashes, how to reward loyalty with access, and why precision, not emotion, is the final stage of power. Once you've tested everyone and the masks start to fall, the silence that follows can feel heavy. You might even mistake it for loneliness. But it's not loneliness. It's clarity. It's what happens when the noise leaves your life and only the signal remains. At first, it feels strange. The people you thought were solid start melting away. Conversations that used to flow suddenly die mid-sentence. You'll hear subtle questions like, "You've been quiet lately," or, "What's going on with you?" But the tone isn't concern, it's suspicion. That's how you know the test worked. Because when someone benefited from your softness, your precision feels like a threat. They can't say it directly, so they shift their tone, their energy, their distance. That's the moment to hold your ground. Do not chase. Do not explain. Do not negotiate. The test has already spoken. Here's what Machiavelli would tell you. When someone's loyalty cracks under pressure, it never heals. It only hides. The next time the conditions repeat, the same betrayal will return. Loyalty is not an accident. It's a discipline. And disloyalty isn't a mistake, it's a habit. You don't cure it with second chances. You remove it with precision. When someone fails one of your tests, whether it's distance, silence, uncertainty, weakness, or temptation, you don't need to announce it. You don't need a dramatic goodbye. You just create space. Quietly, cleanly. Let absence do what words never could. Because explanation invites manipulation, and a true betrayal doesn't deserve a debate. A single door closing can say more than 1,000 arguments. And once that door closes, you don't mourn. You reorganize. You're not losing people, you're losing distortion. Every false friend inside your fortress is a crack in the wall. And you don't patch cracks with paint. You rebuild the section with stone. Loyalty isn't decoration. It's structure. It's what keeps your mind, your projects, your ambition stable under pressure. One weak beam, and the whole tower trembles. That's why the purge is necessary. At first, the silence feels like loss, but stay with it, because soon you'll realize it's not emptiness. It's space. Space for what's real, for what strengthens instead of drains. Machiavelli said power doesn't grow in crowded rooms. It grows in clean ones. And that's exactly what this process does. It cleans the room. Every person who leaves after these tests is one less shadow dulling your edge. Their presence wasn't neutral. It was corrosive. Every fake smile, every half-hearted cheer, every delayed response to your victories, it all adds up. It makes you hesitate, and hesitation is death. Not just in war, but in life, ambition, and power. So, when they fall away, let them. Don't reach back for them. They've already chosen where they stand. You're not trying to be feared. You're trying to be sovereign. You're not chasing loyalty. You're building an empire of clarity. Whether that empire is your business, your creative vision, or your inner world. Every test you run, every person who fails, every boundary you enforce, it all moves you closer to certainty. The more certain you are, the stronger your movements become. While others waste energy questioning motives or managing drama, you operate clean. No second guessing. No wasted attention. That's why Machiavelli warned rulers to test regularly. Loyalty isn't something you confirm once and then forget. It's like security at the gates. It requires maintenance. Even the most loyal allies must be re-evaluated over time, because comfort breeds complacency, and complacency opens doors for ambition. Empires don't collapse from the outside, they rot from within. History proved him right again and again. It wasn't foreign armies that destroyed the great kingdoms. It was betrayal that started inside the court. The same applies to you. Betrayal doesn't usually arrive loud or obvious. It starts small. A missed defense of your name. A hesitant show of support. A quiet shift in tone when you succeed. Betrayal rarely shouts, it whispers. And unless you're listening carefully, you'll miss it. So, from now on, you listen differently. Every conversation is data. Every reaction is information. You stop taking words at face value and start reading energy, timing, silence. When someone changes their tone because your life is changing, you note it. When someone downplays your progress, you remember it. When someone stops showing up when there's nothing to gain, you record it. You don't need revenge. You need awareness. That's the mindset of precision. You stop trusting momentum. You start trusting behavior. You stop being impressed by admiration. You start valuing endurance. You stop asking what someone says about you and start watching what they do when you're not around. Because real loyalty isn't proven when you're strong. It's revealed when you're uncertain, when you have nothing to offer, when your crown slips and your direction isn't clear. That's when the masks come off. That's when opportunists vanish. That's when the real ones reveal themselves, not with big gestures, but with steady presence. With silence that doesn't disappear, with small acts that require no spotlight. When you see someone fail one of your loyalty tests, even slightly believe it. Don't explain it away. Don't soften it with empathy. The minute you saw the crack, it became your responsibility to cut before it spreads. Machiavelli warned that the ones who betray you most brutally are the ones you gave too many chances. Every delay, every justification, every "maybe this time will be different" weakens you. So, the cut must be clean, not emotional, surgical. No farewell speech, no closure conversation. Just space, detachment, distance. The sound of a door closing and silence. That silence is your crown. Wear it, move forward, because what you're building isn't meant for everyone. This path isn't for the comfortable, it's for the disciplined. The more you refine your circle, the more dangerous your focus becomes. And as your focus sharpens, you'll notice something extraordinary. Loyalty starts reflecting back. The few who remain, those who've passed every test, don't just stand by you, they fortify you. They give you eyes behind your back. They guard your name when you're absent. They don't compete silently while pretending to cheer. They're not threatened by your strength, they're empowered by it. And when you finally have even one person like that, one who defends you without being asked, one who steps in before you even speak, you'll realize you don't need to be surrounded to feel supported. You don't need a crowd to feel safe. You just need someone real. From that point on, you stop seeking validation from numbers. You start valuing proof through consistency. Because loyalty isn't about quantity, it's about quality. It's not about who claps the loudest. It's about who holds the line when no one's watching. In the next part, we'll move into the transformation. How the loyalty test doesn't end with others, but turns inward. How power demands you to become the very thing you expect from others. Disciplined, precise, and loyal in silence. Here's where the entire idea of loyalty takes a sharp turn. After you've run Machiavelli's 5 tests on others, the final one begins on you. Because every ruler, every strategist, every person who's been betrayed eventually faces this question. Am I loyal myself? It's easy to demand loyalty when you hold the power, when you're the one being served, admired, supported. But when silence stretches between you and someone who once gave you light, do you stay? When they stumble, when their confidence shakes, when they have nothing to offer you, do you disappear? Do you gossip? Do you guard their name? Or do you let it be picked apart in rooms they're not in? That's where your own allegiance gets tested. Machiavelli knew that commanding loyalty without embodying it is hypocrisy. The same precision you demand from others must exist in you. Because true dominance isn't about surrounding yourself with obedient allies. It's about being the kind of leader they trust instinctively. You can't control loyalty through fear alone. Fear can make people obey, but it can't make them believe. And once belief dies, obedience crumbles the first time it's tested. So you turn the mirror around. You begin running the same 5 tests inward. You ask, do I stay consistent when no one's watching? Do I protect those who trusted me, even in silence? Do I stand firm when it costs me comfort? Do I guard secrets like weapons, or do I trade them for social currency? Do I remain steady when power shifts, or do I move with the wind? These questions cut deeper than any betrayal you've faced because they reveal how disciplined you truly are. If you can't pass your own tests, you can't expect anyone else to. The test becomes a lifestyle. Every action is weighed. Every silence becomes a statement. Every promise becomes a contract with your own integrity. This is where Machiavelli's philosophy rises above the surface-level idea of coldness. He never said, "Trust no one." He said, "Trust wisely. Trust what's been tested." And that includes trusting yourself. Because if your word doesn't hold when the world turns silent, then even your throne will eventually feel hollow. Real power is built on loyalty in both directions, given and received. Not freely, but fiercely. Not to everyone, but to the few who have earned it through fire. When you find someone who has passed every test: withdrawal, uncertainty, silence, weakness, and temptation, that person becomes part of your core, not your circle. Circles shift. Cores do not. Circles are social. Cores are sacred. And that core must be protected with the same ruthlessness you used to refine it. You guard it. You reward it. Not with empty words or flattery, but with access, with trust, with partnership, with inclusion in your plans. Loyalty doesn't need gifts. It needs recognition. The loyal don't want applause. They want purpose. They want to be part of something worth defending. When you give that to them, the bond becomes unbreakable. That's why Machiavelli said, "A ruler's greatest asset is not his army, but the few who remain loyal through uncertainty, because those few become his foundation. They see the vision when no one else does. They watch his blind spots. They don't waver when fear arrives. They act as extensions of his will, because they trust it." You can feel the difference immediately. When your circle is full of convenience, everything feels heavy. You have to monitor, filter, defend, translate. You feel watched instead of supported. But when your circle is fortified, you move lighter, you speak less, you rest deeper, you execute faster. That's what real loyalty gives you: freedom. The kind of quiet confidence that lets you move without checking who's behind you. So you start refining your world around that energy. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't deserve context. You stop apologizing for boundaries that protect your peace. You stop wasting oxygen defending your strategy to those who've never earned access to it. Precision replaces performance. You realize that emotion is for connection, but precision is for survival. And precision isn't cruelty. It's clarity. It's saying, "You've shown me who you are, and I believe you." It's choosing alignment over attachment, purpose over nostalgia. Because nostalgia is seductive. It makes you remember the good moments and forget the patterns. It convinces you that this time will be different, even though every test already told you the truth. The wise don't ignore evidence just because it hurts. They act on it, quietly, swiftly, without hesitation. That's where power lives, in your willingness to enforce what you already know. It's not about revenge, it's about prevention. Because every time you let weakness stay in your fortress, you invite betrayal back in under a new disguise. Forgiveness can be tactical, but forgetting is suicidal. Machiavelli warned rulers never to grow soft, not in judgment, not in memory, not in boundaries. The moment you forget who failed you, betrayal returns, wearing a cleaner face. So you forgive if it serves your strategy, but you never forget. You remember how people acted when things were uncertain, when you were silent, when the spotlight shifted. Those memories become your map. They guide how close each person stands to the throne, and while others call it paranoia, you call it governance, because you're not playing for affection anymore. You're playing for endurance. You're not collecting company. You're cultivating competence. You're not chasing validation. You're constructing sovereignty. This is the transformation Machiavelli foreshadowed, the rise from ruler of others to ruler of self. When your loyalty becomes selective, your energy becomes lethal. You start moving like someone who has nothing left to prove. You no longer need to be understood. You only need to be effective. You no longer fear being alone. You fear being surrounded by the wrong ones. The weak mistake this for loneliness. The strong know it as focus. Because once you've seen betrayal up close, once you've felt the silence after someone's mask falls, you no longer crave crowds. You crave clarity. You crave stillness. The kind of stillness where you don't need armor in your own home. The kind of stillness where you can finally hear yourself think. That's the reward for all the tests, the clean quiet, the absence of pretense. The few who remain are enough. They speak your language without translation. Not your words, but your values. Not your tone, but your discipline. In the final part, we'll explore the ultimate state Machiavelli described, how loyalty becomes a weapon of strategy, how betrayal becomes data, and how living by these tests turns your life, your business, and your mind into something unshakable. Everything up to this point has been preparation. The tests, the silence, the cuts, they weren't the goal. They were the cleansing. And now, what remains is not emptiness, but structure. This is where Machiavelli's idea of sovereignty comes alive, not as dominance over others, but as control over your world. When the wrong people are gone, your life gets quieter. The quiet might feel strange at first, almost too calm. But that silence is not loneliness. It's confirmation. It's proof that your foundation has been rebuilt with stone instead of sand. Every person still near you has been proven. Every absence has created space for focus, for strength, for truth. You no longer have to wonder who's with you. You know, Machiavelli wrote that a ruler's downfall rarely comes from external enemies. It comes from within. The same applies to you. Most people are destroyed not by strangers, but by the familiar, the friend who envied them, the partner who grew resentful, the ally who turned opportunist. That's why the loyalty test never ends. You don't do it once and move on. You do it regularly, quietly, instinctively. You test loyalty like you check the gates of your fortress. But here's the shift. Once you reach this stage, you're not testing to find betrayal. You're testing to preserve balance. You've already built the system. Now you maintain it. You notice details, the hesitation in a voice, the delayed response, the unguarded tone when your name comes up. The small things others miss, you register. You don't need confrontation. You don't even need words. You can read intent in silence. That's control, the kind Machiavelli admired most. Not emotional control over others, but composure within yourself. The power to act without reacting. The strength to walk away without ceremony. The calm to rebuild without explanation. From this point forward, betrayal doesn't surprise you. It educates you. Every test that fails refines your vision. You stop taking disloyalty personally. You start seeing it as part of human nature. You understand that loyalty is rare because integrity is rare, and both require strength. Weak people can like you, praise you, even swear devotion to you. But the moment life tests them, they bend. That's not cruelty. That's reality. And when you understand that, something inside you hardens not bitterly, but wisely. You no longer hand out trust as a gift. You issue it as a contract, renewed only through behavior. You no longer chase connection. You create alignment. You no longer get drained by pretending everyone has the same heart. You accept that most people never will. Machiavelli believed that clarity is the highest form of power. Not control, not manipulation, but clarity. When you know who is real and who is false, when you can read motives without being told, when you can remove disloyalty without guilt, that's when you become unshakable. Your circle becomes small but dense. The few who remain are not there out of convenience. They're there out of conviction. They don't compete with you in secret. They don't flinch when the storm hits. They move with you silently, efficiently, faithfully. You don't need to question them because they've already passed through fire. And those people, those rare few, are worth more than 100 who cheer from the sidelines. Because they don't need applause to believe in you. They operate in the background, strengthening the ground beneath your feet. That's the kind of loyalty you protect like gold. You guard it with the same ruthlessness you once used to expose the false. But the final layer of the loyalty test isn't about them, it's about you. You've become the one who tests, but you must also become the one who passes. Because commanding loyalty without embodying it leads to collapse. Machiavelli said a ruler must be feared and respected, but above all, trusted by the few who matter. That kind of trust is built through discipline, by being unshakably loyal to those who've earned it, even when no one's watching. So, you practice what you preach. You protect the names of the loyal when they're not in the room. You defend their absence when others doubt them. You hold their secrets like weapons, never used, never exposed. Because loyalty, once proven, becomes sacred. It's not about sentiment, it's about principle. At this stage, you move differently. You speak less, observe more. Every word is intentional. Every silence has meaning. You don't waste energy convincing people of your worth. You let your consistency do that for you. And when betrayal appears again, and it will, you don't crumble. You cut once, cleanly, and move forward. No closure, no drama. Just precision. From the outside, people will say you've changed. They'll call you cold, guarded, maybe even ruthless. But what they're really seeing is discipline. You're no longer available to chaos. You've stopped mistaking kindness for weakness. You've stopped mistaking company for loyalty. You've stopped mistaking presence for protection. Now, your world is smaller, but stronger. Quieter, but sharper. You no longer need to defend your boundaries, they defend you. You no longer need to announce your strategy, it unfolds in silence. You no longer wonder who's real, the test's already told you. And in that stillness, you finally feel something most people never reach: peace. Not the soft, fragile peace of comfort, but the heavy, grounded peace of certainty. The kind that comes when your world is fortified, your vision is clear, and your alliances are earned, not assumed. That is the end of the Machiavellian loyalty test. It's not about paranoia. It's about power through precision. You've learned to see people as they are, not as you wish them to be. You've learned that betrayal isn't tragedy, it's information. And you've learned that true loyalty isn't loud. It's silent, consistent, proven. Because in the end, loyalty is not what you demand, it's what you become. And when you embody it fully, you no longer need to test anyone. Your presence alone becomes the test.